Hello everyone, it's me loosecontroi and welcome to this new tutorial. First, I wanna apologize for being inactive for more than 2 months now. A lot of things happened and a lot of changes took place in my life recently. So anyways, today I'm going to make my first tutorial about the thing that you guys are pushing me to do a tutorial about, which is After Effects. So before we begin, you must know that Sony Vegas and After Effects does not have the same function, meaning to say that Sony Vegas is a dedicated video and audio editing software, whereas After Effects is mainly made for motion graphics and design and visual effects. However, After Effects can do most of the things that Sony Vegas is capable of, but the opposite is not true. But in most cases, it's kind of inefficient to use After Effects for video editing in terms of time. So you can do the visual effects, motion graphics and transitions in After Effects and compile them in Sony Vegas or any other video editing software. And please don't ask me where to get After Effects from. If you can afford, then go ahead and buy it. If you don't, then I believe that you can find a way around it. Since most of us here are here to learn and doing a hobby and not really making money out of our AMVs, then I believe it's no crime to get it the wrong way. Another thing is, if you are willing to learn After Effects for career, then I don't recommend watching video tutorials, but rather reading a book which will give you sufficient knowledge and skill to create anything that comes to your mind. But if you are learning just for fun, stick with me and it's going to be fun. Now let me show you first what we are going to do. We are going to make a slideshow consisting of 3 photos. Each one of them is 3 seconds long and there is 1 second for transition between each 2 photos. So if you review it, it will look just like this. We can see this slideshow, quite simple, but the purpose of this tutorial is to give you the basic idea of how After Effects work and to go through the full process of making a simple video. And in other tutorials we are going to discuss many effects, transitions and motion graphics techniques. So the first thing is that, let me close this one. Let's launch Sony Vegas Adobe After Effects CS6, and I've tried CS5, CS5.5, and they are almost the same. So if you are using Sony Vegas 5, 5.5 or even CS4, you can do the things that I'm going to teach you right now, just the same. So let's launch it. Ignore those messages. Now this is the interface of the program, and this is the interface of the After Effects. Please don't freak out. You can see a lot of panels, a lot of tools, but when we decompose the user interface, you will see how simple it is. Now the first thing, you need to make sure that the workplace you are using is the standard one. Each one of those workplaces is specialized in one type of tools, but the standard one is like a general one. Select it and we can see a lot of panels. The first panel is the project panel, which is this one. This is the first panel, which is called the project panel, and it is where you can find the source files of your project. And the second one is the timeline panel, which is this one, and it is where you stack layers and sequence them and control their animation. And the composition panel to preview a composition, or comp in short. Now another thing I want to tell you about, which is that in After Effects you can do things in many ways. You can use shortcuts, you can use buttons, you can use the toolbar, but I'm going to teach you the way I do it. I find it easy for me. It's not the best way, but it's the way I prefer to do. So the first thing we do is download a link in the description containing these 3 photos, which are our tutorial files. Then extract it and select the 3 files, drag them and drop them on the project panel just right here, and they will be added to our project. And now the second thing is that we need to create a composition where we stack layers and create a scene. We press right here to create a new composition. We got some simple settings. I prefer to use the preset of HD TV 720 29.97, which is just which has a height of 720 pixels, width of 1280 pixel width, and about 30 frames per second, and that's it. So we need to name our composition. Let's name it, for example, getting started, and leave those settings as they are, and we choose the background color to be black, and we need a duration of 11 seconds of our project or our composition. Press OK, and here is our new composition. Now the second thing is we need to add the source files to our composition, and adding source files to a composition will change the name of the source file to layer. So we just drop it this way, and you will notice that the picture has been dropped here. And since we have 11 seconds, we will give each one of those 3 photos 3 seconds and of length, and 1 second for transition, which is mutual between 2 back-to-back photos. So we need to trim this one to be only 4 seconds long, not 11. So we can do it in many ways. We can just pull the edge until this point, or we can also press Ctrl Shift D to split it and cut the part we don't need. So we have 4 seconds long layer, and you can see here this one is our timeline pointer. The time is indicated here wherever our pointer is. Now we need to add the next photo. We can drop it either here or here. I prefer to do it here. We need 1 second for transition and 3 seconds long for clip. Now if you want to move just 1 frame backward or forward, we press and hold Control and press right or left to move backward or forward. So if we move 1 second, then you make sure that you are selecting the second layer. Press Ctrl Shift D to split and delete the part we don't need. Just press on it, it will be highlighted, then press delete. And then we need to move starting from here 4 seconds to the front. So 4 plus 4, which is 8. Then we split again and delete the part we don't need. And now we add the third layer. We need 1 second for transition. 7. Make sure that you are selecting the third layer. Split, delete. And to preview what you have done, you can do it in two ways: run preview or just the normal preview, which is without audio. You can press the spacebar for normal preview, and for run preview, which is real-time preview, press 0 on the numerical keyboard. Usually it will take time to load before it previews what you have done. Now we just have cutscene right here, but we need to make a fade out, fade in transition. So what we are going to do is that we will let the first clip fade out and the second clip fade in, or layer, sorry, and we do the same between the second and the third one. But before that, you will notice that the photo does not fit our composition size, and that's because our photo size is bigger than our frame. So we need to scale, our composition size. We need to take the scale of our photo down so it can fit in the composition. We select the first clip and press here on this rectangular, which will give you the transform parameters of the layer. Press again and you will find a bunch of parameters to control. Now we are interested in the scale. We have the anchor point, we have position, scale, rotation, and opacity. Most of them are obvious except this one, which we will discuss later. And now we are interested in the scale, so we take the scale down by either pressing on the scale value and numerically enter the size we want. For example, 50%. And this one represents the scale in the x-axis, and this one represents the scale in the y-axis. But both of them will remain the same since the constraint proportion is on, so they will remain interconnected. Or the second way to do it is by left clicking on the numerical number and then moving right or left. I find this one much easier. Okay, this one looks good, and you can see the frame of the original photo right here. And we do the same for the second and third clip. Now instead of pressing here then showing the transform options, we can use the shortcut. After selecting the layer, press S and it will just show the scale parameter. Okay, cool. We do the same here. Press S after selecting the layer, take the value down. Okay. Now we need to do a transition between each two photos. We need to play around with another parameter, which is the opacity. If we come to the beginning of the overlapped area between the two photos and play around with the opacity value, you will see that the upper photo will disappear, will fade out. But if we set it to 0, the whole thing will be 0. So even at the part where there is no overlapping between the two photos, you will just see the background, since our layer opacity is reduced to 0. So we need to animate the value of the opacity so it can do what's in our mind. So if we come to the beginning of the overlapped area, press this stopwatch. It will create a keyframe on the timeline at the point where our timeline pointer is, with a value of 100. So if we move to the end of the overlapped area and reduce the opacity to 0, you will notice now, focus here, you will notice that the value as we move the timeline pointer will change from 100 to a 0, which is just what we want, and we call those keyframes. So we successfully did a fade out transition. Let's press 0 on the numerical keyboard to preview what we have done. Okay, just cool. Now we need to do the same thing for the between the second and the third photo. Now we can access the opacity of the second layer by pressing this rectangular, or another shortcut which is pressing T for opacity or transparency. So we need to set a keyframe just right here, and be careful when once you set a keyframe, once you press the clock, it will create a keyframe wherever your timeline pointer is. So if you intend to create a keyframe right here, but you put the timeline pointer at the wrong position, it will create a keyframe that you don't want. Or if you did that by mistake, you can easily just drag the keyframe to wherever you want. So this keyframe with 100, and this keyframe with and this point, we need a keyframe with a 0. So we successfully did a fade in transition. And by the way, you can control the quality of the preview by not the quality of the final output, the quality of the preview by choosing one of those. But the higher quality, the slower the RAM preview will be. And some might think that we need to let one of the, for example, this layer fade in, fade out, and this one fade in. So if we try to do that, first we need to create a keyframe by pressing right here between these two keyframes with the same value. So it implies that the value of the opacity will never change between these two keyframes. If we set this keyframe, you can hide a layer by pressing at this eye right here, so we can watch the layers beneath it. And we set this one to 0, so it's fading in, and the upper layer is fading out. You will notice that we can see the background of the composition, which is not what we want. And the reason behind that is that if you sum 47 plus 53, you will get 100, which obviously means that we will not see the background of the composition. But the logic in After Effects is not the same. It's going to multiply them, not add them. So if we want to compare, we can use this. We can take a snapshot by pressing right here and then undo what we have done, and if we press right here, it will show the last snapshot that we have took. So to overcome that problem, we just let one of the layers fade in or out, and that's it.